Hey guys, sorry I'm not here today. I have an appointment, but I will be back with you all tomorrow. I just wanted to post this video so that you guys can get the notes for today's lesson. Today we're talking about point slope form. So we've talked about a couple different ways that we can write a linear equation. We've talked about slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. We've talked about standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. And today we're talking about point slope form. Now, point slope form is not always required. I'm not asking you to memorize point slope form like I need you to memorize the other two, but I am teaching it just as another way of showing you how you can come up with an equation. Okay, so it's derived from the slope formula. Derived just means that it comes from the slope formula. That's how they came up with this other way of writing an equation called point slope form. All right, so I'm going to start out with just drawing another point on this graph. Could be anywhere. Doesn't matter where I put it, and that point would be x comma y. We don't know what the x and y are, okay? But that's okay because when we write an equation, we want to be able to solve for any possible x and y value, okay? So we're just going to call that xy. We don't know what they are. That's fine, okay? When you think of your slope formula, you think m equals, and normally we would say y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. I am not going to put the sub 2 on this point. I'm just going to call it xy. We don't need to say the sub 2 for this part, okay? So I'm just going to call it y minus y sub 1 over x minus x sub 1. And this is the slope formula. This is how you would find the slope between those 2 points that I just drew on the graph. The point slope form of an equation comes from this formula, okay? So what they basically do is they multiply each side by x minus x sub 1 times x minus x sub 1 to come up with a new equation, okay? And the reason they do this is because when you multiply this side by x minus x sub 1, it cancels out the denominator. X minus x sub 1 over x minus x sub 1 would just be 1. Okay, so it makes sense that those would cancel each other out. Okay, so now I'm just going to rewrite what I have left. I'm going to put this on the left side because usually y is on the left side with point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals, and on the other side I have m times x minus x sub 1. This is point slope form. Okay, so all they really did here was multiply both sides of the slope formula to come up with this format of an equation. Okay, and when you have an equation written in this format, m is obviously the slope. X sub 1, y sub 1 is a value that you'll be given. So basically, you'll be plugging in numbers for x sub 1, y sub 1. But you won't be plugging in numbers for x, y. Because the whole point of us giving you x, y is that it would work for any point on the line. Any point x, y on the line. All right, so now let's go ahead and turn the page. We're going to put this into action. Okay, first thing it says is using the slope-intercept form of an equation is helpful when you have the slope and y-intercept, right? It's right in the name. You need the slope and the intercept to put it in slope-intercept form. For point-slope form, also makes sense. It's right in the name. You need a point and you need the slope to put it in that format. Okay, so let's look at our example. It says for 4 months, you saved $25 per month at a constant rate. Now you have $175 in your savings account. Write an equation of this relationship. Okay, $25 per month. I know when I see the word per that this is my slope or my rate of change. I'm going to write that down. Slope given is 25. Okay, I'm also now given some other information, which is going to be my point on the line. Okay, it says that it's been 4 months and I have $175 saved. So my point is 175. I can use point slope form to write the equation. Okay, so point slope form, I'm going to write it down again. We just came up with it, but here's point slope form. Y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. This is point slope form. All you do is plug in the numbers to write your equation. Okay, so I'm going to replace, and I'm going to label this a little nicer. 4 is x sub 1. 175 is y sub 1. So I'm replacing x sub 1 with 4. I'm replacing y sub 1 with 175, and my slope is m. So I'm replacing m with 25. You don't replace the x and y, okay? Just like with slope-intercept form and with standard form, you should always have an x and a y in your final equation. So I leave the y alone. I replace y sub 1 with 175 equals m is 25 times x minus, and I replace x sub 1 with 4. This is my equation in point slope form. That's it. You're just plugging the right numbers into the right place. Now, the nice thing about point slope form is that it's actually pretty easy to rewrite that equation in slope intercept form. And it does ask me to write my final equation in slope intercept form, meaning that I need to get y all by itself. Okay, so I'm now going to solve this equation and get y all by itself. I'm starting by distributing, and I get y minus 175 equals 25x minus 100. And then I add 175 on either side to get my final equation in slope-intercept form. Y equals 25x plus 75. That's my final equation in slope-intercept form. Okay, so this is just another way of coming up with an equation. You guys already had one method of doing this. The other method of doing this would be to say, okay, I know my slope is 25, so it's going to be y equals 25x plus b. And then you could have plugged in this point to solve for b. This is the other way of coming up with the equation, okay? So you could have replaced y with 175, and you could have replaced x with 4, and you could have solved for b that way. 175 equals 100 plus b minus 100 minus 100. B equals 75, and you get the same equation. Y equals 25x plus 75. Okay, so all I'm doing is teaching you another method of coming up with the same equation. One method is to solve for b. The other method is to write it in point slope form and then rearrange it into slope-intercept form. Two ways of doing the same thing. On the next page, it's one more example. You can see that they were given the slope of 2/3. They were given the point -6, 1. -6 is x sub 1. 1 is y sub 1. And they just plugged those numbers in. So y sub 1 was replaced with 1. M was replaced with 2/3. And x sub 1 was replaced with -6. And then they simplified because x minus -6 is x plus 6, right? Keep, change, opposite. Okay, so the equation in point slope form is this. Y minus 1 equals 2/3 times x plus 6. If you need to convert it into slope-intercept form, you solve for y. You get y all by itself. So you can see they started by distributing 2/3 times x to get 2/3 x, 2/3 times 6 to get 4. Then they added 1 to either side to get y all by itself, and they got y equals 2/3 x plus 5. Okay, it's easy to rearrange it and put it in slope-intercept form. There are a couple on your own problems that you guys can try. For homework, you guys are finishing that practice packet. Make sure that you're reading the directions carefully. For some of them, I asked you to write it in point slope form. So if you have to write it in point slope form, Make sure that you do that. If I say that you can write it in point slope form or y-intercept or slope-intercept form, then you choose which one you want to write it in. It's up to you. But I'm going to write down all three so that you have them on your paper to reference, okay? So first we have slope-intercept form. This you need to memorize. It's y equals mx plus b. You have to know this. You have to know this for your test. I am not going to tell you this. You need to know this format, okay? The other one is standard form. We have spent some time with standard form. We're going to spend even more time on standard form next week. It's also super important when we do word problems, okay? And this one is ax plus by equals c. And then the one that I'm teaching today in these notes is called point slope form. And that one is y minus y sub 1 equals m times x minus x sub 1. So pay attention in the homework for what I ask for. Do I ask for it in point slope? Do I ask for it in slope intercept? Make sure you know what one I'm asking for and then put it in the correct format. I hope you all have a great day. I will see you tomorrow and answer any questions you might have had about this. Bye, guys.